everyone, it's Karen, and I wanted to review How to Read Nonfiction Like a Professor by Thomas C. Foster. This book was super cool for a lot of reasons, but anyway, Thomas C. Foster is a professor at University of Michigan. He actually lives in East Lansing, which is not very far from me. I mean, it's like an hour or something, I don't know. So in this book, basically, he is teaching us how to read nonfiction. And one of the things that I learned that was new and familiar at the same time, I guess, was the 4 questions that need to be answered in a nonfiction text. So, for example, in a newspaper article, there's like the W's, like who, what, where, you know, all those things. But in a nonfiction book, it's actually a little bit different. And so the first thing is problem. And again, like I said, I have seen these played out in nonfiction. I just haven't had the language to learn about exactly what they were, I guess. And so I'm going to tell you about this book using those 4 questions that he is saying that all nonfiction books need to use. So the problem, he basically says, which I think everyone on BookTube knows is true, that we live in this age of deception and glorifying things that are not true. And that's a problem. But at the same time, while this problem of the lack of truth and the popularity of lies and all that stuff is going on, it's also the golden age for nonfiction. If you go to a bookstore, there are so many nonfiction books that are not just like textbooks or something dry, but are really engaging. Like creative nonfiction is very popular right now. And so it's kind of this weird dichotomy between these two things. And yeah. So the promise. So in nonfiction books, you say the problem and then you promise the people a solution. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep reading. And so his promise is basically like, we got this. Like, I'm going to teach you how to read nonfiction and solve this problem. The next question that is always answered in a nonfiction text, typically all of these are pretty much given right away, is the program. So how are you going to do this? So he is going to teach us in this book how to read critically. And a lot of this was review for me. Like, I know how to read nonfiction, but one of the things that I thought was interesting was just like all these questions that you should be asking yourself while you're reading. And some of them I think are things that good readers do naturally, but just like really questioning the author, like, how do you know this? Why do you know this? Like, for real, how did you get this information? How many sources do you have? Just like really like attacking almost the author to make sure that they are truthful in what they are saying. And then finally, in a nonfiction text, there should be evidence of a platform. And so for him, he is able to write this book on how to read nonfiction because he is a professor and he has been teaching nonfiction and writing and all this stuff forever. So he is an expert. All right, you guys, apparently nothing else I said was recorded because my phone cut out. But I'm going to continue by telling you the things that I loved about this book. Meanwhile, just so you know, there are now legit lumberjacks outside of my apartment, which is amazing, but there's some background noise. Okay, so the things I loved about it, number 1, this author really made a lot of political comments, and I love that because it just makes me laugh, but it also breaks my heart. The only thing is I prefer more like subtle references as opposed to outright blasting someone, and he was more in the blasting aspect, but you know, you gotta take what you can get. The other thing that I really liked about it was his reminder to maintain the popularity of newspapers and magazines as like this political statement, I guess, because he's saying that if newspapers and magazines go away, which obviously you can see their decline, that it's really a threat to democracy. And so by subscribing to a newspaper or a magazine, you're kind of helping with upholding our democracy. And then finally, the other thing I really liked about it was a book of books. So even though a lot of this content was familiar to me and not new, he referenced so many nonfiction books. So it was a great way to prepare for Nonfiction November and just get really excited about all the nonfiction books I want to read. And in the back, he actually has the books in the book. And he has a list of all the titles that he has included or referenced. So I loved that. What I'm curious about as far as you guys is I want to know, what are your favorite nonfiction books? Just in general, like what are nonfiction books that have changed your life or been super entertaining? I'm so excited for Nonfiction November, and I'm looking forward to reading a lot of books that are fast paced and that don't even seem like you're reading nonfiction because you're just like sucked into this time. So anyway, I'm curious what recommendations you guys have, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.